What is up, guys, and welcome to the Meeple Minded podcast, the podcast where we talk all things tabletop gaming. My name is Jason.
And my name is James.
How are you doing this week, James?
Yeah, I'm good.
Second episode of the year.
Yeah.
Episode 125.
Yay.
Yay. How are we doing? I still don't know how we're doing it. But yes, episode 125. I've started listing them with episode numbers now, rather than being in seasons like I was doing it before. I just think it looks more impressive when we have over 100 episodes. So
yes.
Yeah, ego boost for me. Love it. But yeah, what have you been up to this week, James?
Work.
That sounds fun.
Gaming. We have done some... Well, we hosted a game night.
We did. Well, we were going to be gaming last night.
It was horrifically busy.
And then just out of the blue, first one of the year, absolutely horrifically busy. We had to surrender our table, obviously, and that still wasn't enough. So yeah, unfortunately, some poor people ended up playing on chairs, and some very dedicated individuals played on the floor.
Yes.
Which, full respects to you on that one, guys. But yeah, incredibly busy. Fantastic start to the year for our game club, at least. And great to see lots of people playing lots of new things that they got over the Crimbo break.
Yes.
So yeah, great fun. Back to normal now, really, isn't it? Like we've both gone back to work full time, and that's been great fun being back in London. Yeah.
Sucks to be you.
No, all joking aside, it hasn't been too bad. But then again, I haven't had to go into central London just yet.
It's coming.
It's coming. It is coming. And it can, it can do one thing. But I won't say that on here. Yeah, we haven't managed to get a game in since we last recorded, which is quite... I can't even remember if we have gamed since. I don't think we have.
No, not since we last recorded.
No, I think we last played the night before we last recorded. So this is a very, very strange situation, James. We played loads over Christmas.
Yep.
And absolutely nothing since we first did our recording last week, which is really not good, but it's not too bad because the next 2 episodes, or next 3 episodes, something like that, we've played these games ridiculous amounts.
We have.
So that's all good. We are all geared up to talk about games.
We are.
We are all geared up to do it in our new format because we nearly forgot when we pressed the record button.
Yes, as I said, it's like we just did an episode on our brand new format, which we're immediately going to forget and revert to the old one. Because that's how we do it here.
But I have now remembered to get the list in front of us, so we've got a checkpoint as to what we're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
But before we get into the game highlight for this episode, James, we need to talk about the game we played this time last year. Do you know what it was?
Was it Die of the Dead?
It was Die of the Dead.
See, I was paying attention.
Yes, you were. I told you a good 20 minutes ago. I'm amazed you remembered. So, James, how do you feel 1 year on from talking about Die of the Dead?
Well, we haven't really played it since, so the same.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I've played it a few times since. But to be honest, my feelings with that game is actually of annoyance, but not with the game itself. It's with myself. I'm really annoyed with myself that we haven't played it more, because I really do like that game. And I think it deserved to see the table more than it did.
Yep.
And
I would agree. Agree with that.
I do think this year we need to counteract that. I think half the problem was that game actually got left at the club, as opposed to being on my game shelf. It is now back home, which is great. So we should hopefully get that to the table very soon. And my feelings on it is, I definitely want to be playing it more, and couple that with the fact that I backed the impending expansions last year, which should deliver at some point this year. We definitely need to get that back to the table.
Indeed we do.
So it's still on my sort of highly recommended games lists, but slap on the wrist for both of us because we haven't actually been playing it. So that is a travesty. But what isn't a travesty, James, is the fact that we've been playing Heat Pedal to the Metal.
Indeed.
And that's what we're going to talk about today, isn't it?
It is.
So I think we should crack straight on. We'll jump straight into it and hope that this doesn't take too long.
Yes.
Okie dokie, guys. So, Heat, Pedal to the Metal. For those of you living under a rock and don't know what this game is, it is basically a born and bred racing game released by Days of Wonder in late 2022 and has been in the hotness of the Board Game Geek lists seemingly ever since. The game is designed to be played by 1 to 6 players aged 10 and up with an estimated playtime of 60 minutes. And at the time of recording, the game is pretty hard to find, especially here in the UK. And it sells out pretty much immediately when it does go on. But we have found it on pre-order for in the region of £55 to £60. In Heat, players will use game mechanics such as hand management and simultaneous action selection to take their chosen colour race car around the course, performing strategic overtaking manoeuvres and calculated risks, among other things, to get to the finish line ahead of the other players. Will you adopt a mindset of slow and steady wins the race, or will you spend the entire game with a car belching flames as you push your machine to the absolute limit? That's a rough idea of the objective of the game, James. What comes in the box when you buy Heat Pedal to the Metal?
Okay, Jason, so in the box, you get this rulebook. It's actually, it's the first thing that's listed. The rulebook you are currently reading.
Excellent.
2 double-sided game boards with 4 different racetracks, which are the USA, France, Great Britain, and Italy.
Very nice.
6 gear pawns in player colour, 6 race cars in player colour, 6 player mats in player colours, 72 speed cards, 18 starting cards, 37 stress cards, and 48 heat cards. That's for the base module.
Okay.
And then for all the other modules, which I'm sure we will get to talking about.
I love the fact that they've given you a separate list.
Yes. You get, in the garage module, you get 34 basic upgrade cards and 62 advanced upgrade cards. In the Legends module, you get the 1 Legends mat and 10 Legends cards. In the Weather and Road Conditions module, you get 6 weather tokens and 12 road condition tokens. In the Championship system, you get a Championship mat, 2 press corner standees, 10 event cards, 4 track cards, 35 sponsorship cards, 1 score pad, and this rulebook.
Very, very nice, mate. That's quite a list there.
That is quite a list.
The fact that it's in 2 books is very, very impressive to me, though. But there is good reason for that, isn't there, really?
Yes, there is.
Like we said, I think you said it a little bit there. There are modules to this game that actually come in the base core box.
Yep.
You haven't had to buy these separately or anything like that. They come with the core box, which is kind of unheard of, I think.
This
I'm
is
not used to hearing that.
This is effectively the core game, which was the first section I read about. And then the minute I started saying modules, to me, each of those modules, if that was another company, every single one of those modules would be an expansion.
An expansion, yeah. Yeah, I completely agree on that one. But, well, let's, seeing as though we've got the rulebook out, James, the first thing we need to talk about is indeed the rulebook.
Indeed.
So, first things first, at first glance, because I know you haven't actually read the rulebook per se.
I haven't.
But having a quick glance, would you say it's quite well laid out, easy enough to read? And, you know, for someone who doesn't normally read rulebooks, is it something you reckon you could pick up very quickly?
Yeah, I think it's laid up pretty well. I mean, the nice big title sections for the section you're reading out, which is colourful as well, draws your attention to it. Key points are in bold and bigger than the actual text, so it's quite easy to glance over and look for the thing you're looking for. There's plenty of illustrations. I mean, there's a zoomed in look at the dashboard on the player mat. So I think it's a pretty well laid out book, and I also like the fact that it is 2 books. So the core game in 1 book, and then all the add-on modules, should you wish to add them in a different book, so it's not cluttering up the main rule book. Yeah,
100%. That'd be really good, because obviously if you combine those 2 books together, it'd be quite a chunky little book.
It'd be a chunky little book,
which it could put a lot of people off if they've opened the box and find a big rule book like that. But I also love the fact that in the advanced rules there, one, it's got advanced play and championship, but also a big stop. Make sure you read the other one and learn to play the game first.
Yeah, and on the core rules, read this booklet first in big letters on the front of it, saying you need to learn this one before you pick the other one up.
Yeah, no, so that's really clear. I think if anyone reads the wrong book, there's clearly something wrong. But so for me, as someone who has read the rules quite a few times and has taught the game itself, the rulebook for Heat, for the most part, is pretty well done. As you read through to learn the game, everything seems well illustrated with clear pictures and numbered diagrams, which was something I really enjoyed seeing in that. And very close by that, you'd have the number and then what it was basically trying to teach you.
Yep.
So that was really, really good. Very clear. And something that I think is vitally important, because this game does actually have certain sections of simultaneous play.
Yeah.
Having those numbered diagrams and, like you said, the exploded bit of the player board telling you what everything is, that is really, really good and very important.
Yeah.
It's something I always have out on the table. It's not something everyone uses, but it's there should anyone want to do it. Like you said, the fact that you have a second book for the modules is great, because I'd hate for them to sort of have these modules in there. People get confused as to what's what, and they're sort of trying to put all these modules in their first play.
Yeah.
Just confusing the whole issue. So rulebook for me on this one is getting a big thumbs up.
Yep.
Because I think it is very, very well done. I don't think I've really got anything bad to say about it, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, everything, it does what it needs to do, and it does it clearly.
Yeah, I would probably say I think the modules book could probably do with a little bit more work, if I'm honest, because I think the main rule book is far better. It's better laid out. The things are easier to understand. When we have played the modules for the first time with people, I explain how things work, and I also hand over the book should they want to read it themselves, and they've then read it wrong for whatever reason and have ended up confusing themselves. So whether that's just them misunderstanding what it's saying or whether it's misleading, I can't really comment, because I didn't personally have that issue. So I've brought it up, but I don't want to say it's a particularly negative thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the rule book, James. Let's talk about our favourite thing when it comes to games. Let's be honest, it's the components. We love good components.
We do.
How do you feel about the components for Heat?
Yeah, the components are pretty good. I mean, I think the first thing we need to highlight in the components section, which we are a big fan of, storage. It has a box insert.
Oh, it does. It does indeed. And a damn good one.
Yeah.
At that. It's actually the first thing I've written on my notes here. I would stick my neck out and say this is probably one of the best standard inserts that I think I've seen in any game. So Days of Wonder have excelled themselves with this, to the point as well that while it's not been announced yet, because this game goes up to 6 players, there are slots in here, because everything has its own place. That's the first thing to mention. Everything has its own place in here, so it's nice and easy to set things up very quickly. There are also spaces for an additional 2 players, so another 2 cars, another 2 gear sticks, another 2 deck of cards for those individual players, which, one can only assume they clearly have every intention to bring in an 8-player expansion out for this. So, yeah. How do you feel about that insert, James?
I mean, as somebody who owns Nemesis, I would still say that is probably the best standard box insert I've ever seen, but this is a close second.
I would definitely say this is better quality than the Nemesis one.
It's thicker, but in fairness to Nemesis, they needed 2 of them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would. I definitely understand.
But yeah, I mean, it is definitely durable. I mean, this isn't going to break anytime soon. It's really thick vacuum formed plastic, and it's quite durable.
Yeah.
And I love the fact, like you said, that even the card deck splits.
Yeah.
So that you can quickly draw all the cards out. Everything's in the right place. It makes setup a damn sight easier.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about setup a bit more later on, but this is a very quick setup.
Yeah. When the cards are separated like they are, it's like, okay, here's your deck, here's your deck, here's your deck, here's your deck. You haven't actually got to pull out a wad of cards and then sift through them all. Yeah,
exactly. And even when you're playing the modules, like while you were talking and doing that components list, I pulled out the cards for the build your own car module.
Yeah.
And
the garage module.
I was able to quickly separate them into the 2 different piles just by looking very quickly at them as one logo on them. It distinguishes which is which.
Yep.
Yeah. If I really thought about it, I could actually have them in separate sections in this insert.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't even have to do that. So it's just that little attention to detail for me that just it steps the game up. It's nothing to do with the game, but it steps it up a level because you've made my setup easy, you've made my teardown easy, which means you're not eating into my game time.
Yep.
I have a lot of respect for that.
Yep. And the components themselves, obviously, the card stock is very good.
Yep.
The slightly sort of
you've got the luxury linen finish on it. So we say when you flex the card, you can see the weaving and stuff on that.
Yeah. The punch board components, I think, which are from the weather module are nice and thick. They're not going to bend anytime soon. You've got a standard paper score pad in there. The gear pawns are nice and durable. They don't flex.
Nope.
I mean, the cars, I'd say they're not very detailed. If I had to pick a weak, this is a minor niggle, but if I had to pick a weak point, it'd probably be the cars.
See, I find that really interesting because I actually have the cars as one of my highlights of it. And it's actually detail that I find is one of the highlights because I'm comparing it to, say, Downforce, for example.
Yeah.
I look at the cars in this game and to know I can clearly see where the engine is in this.
I mean, there is that, but I mean, they're nothing special is what I mean. It's sort of like, I mean, you could have put a little bit more detail on them.
I mean, I guess they could, but, for the size they are, you've got numbers on the cars. You can clearly see the suspension on all the cars. I think there's enough detail on them for me to be an extra highlight.
I'm gonna say to the listeners now, I'm reaching, if I'm trying to pick it. It's like, they're not bad by any means, but if someone like forced me pick a negative point about this game, I suppose there could have been a bit more detail on the cars.
Yeah. But I mean, you got to think we both come from a background of wargaming, Games Workshop miniatures, where they cram detail on top of detail.
Yeah, I mean, even that, I mean,
inject it with some more detail.
It's I look at them and sort of go, it's like they look like the cars from other sort of cheaper things, but the amount of time and effort they've spent on the rest of the game, it's like, I mean, it's perfectly serviceable for what it does, and like you said, the size of it. But it's like, if I had to pick, if I was forced to pick a negative, it's like, well, I suppose the cars could be more detailed.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I would this one. I've got one. I guess it's not a negative, so I'm very much the same as you. This is a very, very minor niggle, and that is the individual player boards themselves. They're not flimsy. This I want to stress that they are not flimsy, but because of their size, over time, they are going to be susceptible to bending. They're going to be far more susceptible to fraying on the edges. I'm not really sure what the deal is with that, because the only way to really deal with that is to go for, proper board stuff, which will make, one, the cost go up, and two, the size of the box would need to be bigger to accommodate them. So, this is a tiny minor niggle that I can deal with personally by sticking that through a laminator.
Yeah, I mean, the player boards are just card.
Yeah, but having said that, the artwork that they've done for the dashboard is fantastic. You've got your coloured dashboard there. What I really love, and I know a couple of players have noticed it, is how every car
has a lucky charm.
Yeah, they've all got their colours, but then they have their own lucky charm. Like you've got the black one, which has a child's drawing of a black car, which you can only assume is the inspiration that it's their son or daughter that's drawn that.
Yeah, and it's kind of taped to the dashboard. Yeah. I really love the way that the at the top of the player board, which is your guide to what step you're on, and it looks like an old fashioned racing car dashboard.
Of course, yeah.
And the icons for your section or which phase of the game you're in, or where the dials, like the rev counter and the speedo would be. It's a really nice cool touch. Little detail, isn't it?
And
the green, like we were saying about the Lucky Charms, it's like the green car has a 4-leaf clover taped to the dashboard. And it's just little details like that.
Yeah. They don't change the game in any way, but it's just that little bit of detail that shows there's been a form of passion that has gone into creating this product.
Yeah, so, and it makes the different cars feel unique as well.
Yes, 100%. 100%. But yeah, I mean, echo everything you've said really about the components. It's all really good quality. I love the box insert. I love the attention to detail. Very quickly, there's 4 maps included in the base game, James.
Yes.
4 maps.
Yeah, two boards, double-sided.
Again, touching on what other companies would have done, we would have got maybe a double-sided board and then had to buy that other board as an expansion.
Yeah.
I've had Downforce for God knows how long now, and this has already started to catch up with it for maps because it came with 4. So it's a great start. I can only assume they're going to release more at some point.
Yep.
Which I'm all there for, provided they bring something new to the game. But again, we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yep.
But anything else you want to talk about the components wise before we crack on?
I think we can crack on.
Excellent. So it's time for gameplay, James, the most important section of everything we do here. And I will kick off, I think, really, when it comes to the gameplay, because I was honestly blown away by the gameplay of Heat. Not because it's the best thing since sliced bread or anything like that, but because of how simple this game is to play, yet it's managed to do something that I would venture to say, excluding games that take forever and a day to play, I would venture to say that this is the first racing game I have played where I actually felt like I was in a race.
Yep.
You know, there's just so much going on in this game, because something they all miss out on is where I think of Downforce. Now, Downforce is a betting game. Let's not beat about the bush. Downforce is a betting game. Even Flamme Rouge or a multitude of other racing games that I've played, they all lacked that whole thing of, like, if you're going into a corner in this game, for example, and you've got to be under a certain speed and all that kind of stuff, you put yourself in the mind of a racing driver as like, if I just take that little risk, I could nip in front and gain the lead.
Yep.
But is it worth it? You know, I've got to make a split-second decision because we're all simultaneously picking our cards, ready to play.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, well, I need to choose what gear I'm going to go in before we all do that. And do I stick in second gear, or do I strategically knock it down to gear one, go through with only just got enough speed to get through, but I've got all these heat cards in my hand. I've now got enough to cool down and put them back in the thing, which obviously is another thing. We will talk about that in a minute, I promise. But I love that. You know, the hand management side of it is I've got to make sure I've got enough heat in my engine so that I'm not going to spin out on this corner. And, you know, but
or
ultimately you're making that.
If I want to push it through these corners, I really need to think about it. And one of the biggest things, again, we'll talk about the heat cards in a bit. My favorite rule: you can't see how many heat cards.
Yes.
You know how many you start with, and after that point, that you have to keep that deck perfect.
Yeah.
So you can't look down and go, oh, I've got 3.
So I can afford to flick through it. Yeah.
I think I've got 3.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, and there's just so much, like you say, it's keeping track of what you got in your hand, what cards have I had already, what's in my discard pile, what heat have I got left?
Yeah.
What's James got? Like, oh my God, what's James used? Is he going to be able to blitz away from me, or do I strategically play this 4 thinking that he's going to play a 4 so that I can then slipstream round him? You know, there's a lot of things. And like I said, I just feel like a racing driver, that point where you're belting up to a corner at 200 mile an hour.
Yep.
And you've got to make that split-second decision of, I could nip round, but it's a risk, or I could play it safe and sit behind and then hope that I pull away quicker.
Yeah. I mean, I will also say this as well, and I have experienced this from every game we have played. It is very hard to get left behind.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Now, James, I like I said, we're not going to go into how the rules and stuff play here, but I do want to break down some of the mechanics, shall we say, of this game just a little bit and explain how they work. Yeah.
So the basic premise is you all have a hand of cards, and it is the same hand of cards in the base game.
Yep.
You all have the same cards, and they basically have a speed icon on them from 1 to 5.
Yep.
You have more 1s, and then progressively less 2s, 3s, 4s, and 1 5.
1 5, yeah.
And they are you play them in corresponding to which gear you're in.
Yes.
So if you're in gear 1, you play 1 card. If you're in gear 2, you play 2 cards.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit earlier that there is some simultaneous gameplay to it, and that's phase 1 and 2 of a player turn. So simultaneously, everyone has to first choose what gear they want to be in.
Yep.
And as James said, that relates to how many cards you're going to play. So if I'm in gear 2, I have to play 2 cards, which is phase 2 of that, which again is simultaneous. Everyone plays them face down. Once everyone has done that, then it goes in player order. To reveal their card, they move their car that amount of spaces. If they are in last place or second to last place in the higher player count games, they have the option to adrenaline, which gives you a free movement of 1.
Yep.
And by doing that, we'll also give you a free cooldown. The next phase is where you would do the cooldowns and the turbo boosting. Cooldown is if you've got heat cards in your hand, which you will have at some point, and you've got cooldown to spare, you get to spend that cooldown to then put that heat back into the engine.
Yep.
So in that same phase, you also have turbo boosting, which is where you can spend a heat from the engine, not your hand, into your discard pile. And that enables you to essentially boost, at which point you get your draw deck and you flip cards over until you find a speed icon.
Yep.
Your card then moves that amount of spaces forward. The next one is slipstreaming. If you happen to be directly behind a player or alongside a player, you get to move for free an additional 2 spaces. And then what is ultimately the final part of the phase really is the corner check.
Yep.
So we mentioned earlier that if you go through certain corners on the board, will have speed limits. If you go blitzing through a 3 at, say, and your total movement, excluding slipstreams, is, say, 6, you've gone through there at 3 over the speed, you have to then play 3 heat cards from your engine into your discard pile.
Yep. If you have to pay the difference, basically. So if you've done something ridiculously stupid, like blitz through a 3 at
10,
15,
yeah,
you're way over budget, and you best have those heat cards in your engine.
Oh, yes, which is physically impossible because every map so far has had I think it's six heat that you start with. So, yeah, basically, there's a bit of management involved. You don't want to go blitzing through the corners. When you run out of heat, if you go through a corner and you've gone over, if you've got no heat that you can pay, you have to pay everything you've got, and then you spin out.
Yep.
Which isn't great because that puts you straight back down into gear 1. You go back to before the corner, and then you take stress cards, which we will cover next. Depending on what gear you're in, if you're in gear 1 or 2, you gain 1 stress card. If you're in gear 3 or 4, you gain 2 stress cards. The next thing you do is you can discard cards from your hand to the discard pile, providing they are not stress cards or heat cards. And then you draw back up to 7 cards. So to touch on stress cards very, very quickly, they are cards that you can play in your movement phase, but they have no movement value. How they work is you play them down. When you flip them over, you then treat them like a boost card. And you start flipping cards until you find a speed card.
So they're uncontrollable speed cards. Basically, it could be anything between 1 and 4.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's basically a player turn. You know, there's a few more little bits to it, which you will pick up when you play. But, you know, for speed of us talking about the game, that's the rough idea of how the game plays. And it just adds that extra thing because, like I said, you've got your hand management of trying to remember what you've got. You know, do I boost? Is it worth it? You know, if I spend a heat card to boost and I get a 1, I've not really gained that much. But at the same time, I'm 3 away from a corner and I've already gone way too fast to go through that corner. But if I boost and I get a 4, I'm going through that corner, you know, and things like that. You just have to keep an eye on where you are on the board. And I love it. I absolutely love how it plays. You know, the heat card management as well. You know, I'm the worst at maintaining my engine. My engine might as well be on fire the entire time.
I mean, I've got to admit, I usually lose control of that because it's just like, hey, I'm chasing you. And if you're burning heat cards, then I want to keep up with you.
But at the same time, we've played with people that do take the slow and steady wins the race. And then, you know, in certain circumstances, they've won. You know, I mean, I've only had one game, I would say, where a player was so far behind that you kind of felt bad. But I didn't feel bad because the player was me. Because I spun out 3 times in a row on a corner.
Because when we were learning the game, you fundamentally forgot that every time you spin out, you go behind the corner line.
And then to try and catch up, I was playing high cards, forgetting that I don't have heat.
Jason, you still need to go through the corner.
So don't make that mistake, kids. So I think that's probably my standout mechanic of the game. I think just the overall hand management side of things, and I like how the movement works, but it's more the hand management that I really like.
I mean, there's a lot of things to keep track of. Definitely. It's in that respect, it's like, what's everyone else played? What have I got left? How much heat do I think I have left? Am I going to risk that stress card? That's where I really find you start thinking about, I'm going to play this stress card. Okay, what speed cards do I already know is in my discard pile? Depending on, do I want this to be slow or do I want it to be fast?
Now, the question I have for you, James, at this point is, while a lot of the first 2 phases of it are simultaneous, would you say this is the one part of the game where if you've got someone who is prone to, say, analysis paralysis, it could slow the game down considerably?
I mean, it's possible, but I've not encountered that in the games that we've played. It's pretty much, do I want to go fast or do I want to go slow?
I would definitely say, I mean, games that came out at the same sort of time was like Starship Captains, for example. I would say that's far more likely to suffer from analysis paralysis than, say, this game.
I mean, there are also strategic moments because you do have to think about it and sort of, you almost do have to think a couple of turns ahead as well. Because there's been times like, I can't remember which board it is, but there's quite a few slow corners and then it ends in the really fast straight. And I've sort of gone, I've been looking at my hand and going, well, I'm hitting a 3-speed corner. I'm 3 away from the corner.
Yeah.
But as soon as I go through that corner, I want to be foot to the floor because this is a really long straight. But I can actually get away because I've got 3 ones in my hand. So I can go to third, play my 3 ones,
and then
get through the corner. And now I'm in third gear, ready to go right.
Yeah.
Bang.
Well, because your turn would refresh, so you'd be able to go up into fourth.
Yeah.
So you would be able to really pull away in that.
Yeah. And it's sort of like sometimes if the cards fall right, you can go high gear, slow speed.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So it's obviously very, very lucky if you're able to. I did exceptionally well. I think in the last.
I mean,
game
you did it, and it fell perfectly for you. But you did it, which was more impressive, with 2 stress cards.
I did,
and the stress cards gave you the cards that you wanted.
Yeah, it was pure luck, I think, on those grounds. But
I mean,
it was great fun.
That's the risk of playing the stress cards, isn't it? Like I've already mentioned, the 5s and the 0s get binned if you draw them on the stress card, and it's like if you stress at the wrong point and bin your say 5 just as you're going into that long straight. Oh, but I wanted that.
Yeah.
And now it's in the discard pile, and I've got to wait for the discard pile to refresh before I get it back.
See, this is the one thing I would say where things we can touch on some of the modules very, very briefly at this point, because in the base game, there's no actual way of getting rid of those stress cards. Like, you can procure them.
Yes.
But there is no way,
except playing them,
to actually get rid of them per se. I mean, you can play them, but they're still in your deck.
Yeah.
Whereas we'll just say the mechanic, build your car module, for example,
garage
there
module.
are actually ways of getting rid of them.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, for me, my standout thing from this game is the garage module. Because as a racing fan as well, while it's very ideal for the base game, the garage module changes the hands.
Yeah.
So now you haven't all got the same hand, and it makes that what's Jason going to play that much harder, because I need to remember what upgrades he's put on his card.
Yeah.
His unique cards, which is what the garage module does.
I mean, that's the one thing. Like when we talk about like the garage module, it's 3 extra cards. It's 3 very powerful extra cards that you either. Oh, this is the other thing. That module can be done in 2 different ways. You can draft, which is cool, or it can be random. Yeah, you're just dealt 3, to put in your deck. So that's really cool.
I mean, the base, because again, you get 2 decks of cards, and you get the basic ones and the advanced. The advanced ones is much more than 3. I'm just flicking through it. There's loads of them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they do lots of different things. But it's the fact that it changes the hands up for me. It's like, and it reflects the real racing world. It's like Formula 1. They're not all racing with the same car.
Yeah, exactly.
And it really does change it up. It's like some of them make you go faster, some of them make you go around the corners better, some of them give you more cooldown, better slipstreaming. So it does fundamentally change your car and give you a lot of options.
Yeah.
Although -1 point, as I pointed out to you, that the picture on the turbocharger card is not in fact a turbocharger. It's a supercharger. So you get a slap on the wrist from me there.
Yeah, don't mess with people that actually like cars.
Yeah. It's like, that is not a turbo, my friends.
Naughty days of wonder.
Yeah.
How did you make such a mistake? But there you go. So, I mean, is there anything else like, because I think the garage module is the one that we've played probably the most. Like,
it is the standout module to me because it, like I said, it changes the hands and makes the cars not unbalanced but uneven.
Oh yeah.
So that you haven't all got the same deck of cards. So it's like some of them give you have speeds faster than 6 as well. Like I mentioned, in the base hand, you've only got 1 5. So if Jason plays his 5, I know he's already used it.
Yeah.
You put the garage modules in, he could have a 6, a 7, or even an 8 in there.
Yeah. And I think one of my favourites, and we had a great game with it the other day, didn't we, was the triple...
Yes.
Essentially a triple stress. So for that one card, I turned over three cards, and I ended up getting 3 4s, or it was like 2 4s or something like that. Yeah. It was a lot of boost just from one card. But at the same time, this is again where the game is really good. You can't play a card and then ignore it. Like, you have to do it. So it's okay. Well, I've played a 4 and a 3, and I mean, the only other card in my hand that isn't a heat card is this triple stress, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm only 10 spaces away from a 3 corner.
Yeah, it's a gamble.
It's a gamble. I might get lucky and just get some 1s, but the likelihood is, the percentage-wise, reading how the cards are laid, I'm going to go blitzing through this corner.
Yeah, and there are cards in the garage module as well that have 2 speeds on them where you can. They're very versatile. There's it will be like 1/5. So you can, when you play it, it's either a 1 or a 5. You
but again,
choose.
To say that's another thing I like about how clear those rules are. Is like when it is flipped, you specify then what speed it is. So if you've played like a stress with it, you've specified what that is before revealing what card you're going to get with the stress.
Yep.
Because you might sort of go, oh, well, it's a 1 or a 5. Oh, yeah, but if I do the stress first, oh, it's only a 1. Yes, a 5.
Yeah.
You know, that you can't do that. It's like, I flipped it. This is a 1 or a 5. I'm going to choose 5.
Yep.
Then flip your stress. Oh, damn it, it's a 4.
Yep.
You know, that's really, really cool. And that, like I said, the rules are very, very clear.
Yeah, but it's basically to stop you fluttering between the two. It's like, no, as it's flipped, you must declare what it is.
Yeah, so that's really, really good. We want to play with the weather module a little bit,
yep,
I think. But we are going to stop talking about the modules at this point because we really want to play all of the modules. And we will probably come back and do an episode on just the modules and how they change the game at some point in the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's anything about gameplay. Anything else about the gameplay that are highlights or negatives that you don't like?
I can't find a negative with this game. I've got to be honest. I mean, we might throw some up, like you said, if we do another episode on all the modules. But the base game and the garage module, which we've played the most of, I can't highlight a negative with this.
No. Would you say that the garage module is now a must-have in every single game?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
once you've played and got to grips with the rules, it's the first one I recommend you throw in.
Yeah.
Because it's the easiest one to learn out of the modules, and it does stop that predictability, like I said, of, oh, well, he can't use his 5 because I know it's in his discard pile because he's played it. So until that discard pile refreshes, he can't boost away from me, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
With his powerful cards, it just having those random cards in to mix the decks up and everyone's be different, it's much more true to racing.
Yes.
Because not everyone's racing in the same car.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's gameplay. I apologize if we have forgotten anything. I don't think we have. I'm just excited about this game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've covered everything there.
Cool. Playtime, James. Now, the listed playtime on the box is 60 minutes.
Yep.
On Board Game Geek, it says somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes. Now, I think I'm inclined to agree with the 60 minutes on this one because it's... I think
half an hour is very quick.
Yeah, I think it's entirely dependent on your player count.
Yeah.
Like, if you're looking at 3 on 4 players, I think you're looking at that 60-minute mark.
Yeah.
I think 2 players, you could probably do it in the 30 minutes if you knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
However, the 5 and 6 player count, I think once you've gone over the 4th player, basically add on 10 to 15 minutes per player.
Yeah.
I would say is a fair assumption.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
As a worst case scenario, though, like it wouldn't take more than that. So even at the full 6 player counts, would you say an hour and a half?
Yeah, at most, and that's playing it slowly.
Yeah,
I think what's the most we've done? Is it 5?
We've done 5.
We've done 5. I would say that took us somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour.
Yeah.
But that's we were playing the base game, and that was after you and me had learnt it quite well.
Yes, exactly. So 60 minutes is a nice time, and that probably includes a good setup, which ironically is what we're going to talk about next, which is the setup. This game is remarkably quick to set up because, you know, if you're just playing the base game, for example, it's pop the mat down, hand out the player boards and player cards, done.
Yeah.
Oh, before you start the game, you got to look at the game board itself to see how many heat and stress cards you need for that game per player. That's it. Shuffle your cards, boom, off you go.
Yeah.
That is an amazing setup. 5 minutes at a push, I would say.
Yep.
Yeah. So take that into account. 5 minute setup, less than a 60-minute gameplay. This is a contender for a. I mean, it's more than filler. It's definitely more than a filler game for me.
Oh yeah.
But you could have this as a main event game and then still have time to play another main event game, or even multiple games of this.
Yep.
If you wanted to.
Aha. Championship mode.
It has the championship mode. Yes, indeed. So I think that leads us nicely onto value, James. Do you think this game has good value considering the cheapest you can get it for is £55 to £60?
55 to £60, considering if we are, like, we've been comparing it to games like Downforce.
Mm-hmm.
Considering if we were to consider the extra board as a quote-unquote expansion, the fact that you get the base game, an extra board, and a further 4 expansions in this box, hell yeah, do I think it's worth it.
Yeah. Now, it is a real double-edged sword, I think, on this one, because I'm of the mindset that personally, I would actually have liked them to have just taken out the modules from the base game in order to make the base game cheaper, because £60 is quite a lot of money for a lot of people. Whereas if you take the modules out and then sell those modules as small expansions, fairly cheap, I think you'll probably find that most people will still buy most of them anyway. But like for me, I'm sitting here going, the championship one, it's probably not one I'm going to be using all that much. Whereas the garage module, yeah, I'm going to use it all the time. Weather module, that's probably going to be on and off in order to sort of refresh the game a little bit. But yeah, deep down, I think if you're into the idea of using all the modules, if you're into the fact that, if you're going to keep the game in the box, the insert alone is going to save you £10, £15 of buying another one.
Yeah.
Or even more if you go for the MDF ones. So factor that into it. If you're going to keep it in the box and you're going to use those modules, the value is there because the replay value of this is amazing.
Yeah.
It really is. Even just with the base game, I think there's a lot of replay value there.
Oh, yeah. With the 4 different tracks, like you said, the modules they've given you. I did look it up, but the Legends module we were trying to discuss, that's the AI cars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you've got the garage module, the AI cars, the weather, and the championship system.
I think closing thing for me on value really is if you're only going to play the base game, I'm not sure I would suggest spending your money on it. I would definitely join in every single game you possibly can, but if you're only going to play the base game, I don't think it's got as good a value for money on that. So I think it's blatantly obvious. This is another one of my games, James.
Yep.
I think it's blatantly obvious that this is
collection keeper.
A collection keeper for me right now. I have no intention of this going into any kind of sale. If I'm really thinking about it, it's filled quite a big hole in the sense of I didn't have a proper racing game.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, mate. If you ever put this on the for sale pile, you'd probably be flocking it to me.
Okay.
Because the second you said you were selling this, I'd probably buy it.
Well, there you go. That's an endorsement, people.
Yep.
So, recommendation time, James. What do we think?
If someone offers you a slot at a game of Heat at a game night or other gaming event, take it.
Yep. Definitely. I mean, I've already said that.
Without hesitation, sit down and play it. It's a great game.
Yeah.
I think I'd echo what Jason just said about purchasing it. Is if you're only really interested in the base game, maybe wait for it to come on offer or something, or search for an offer, because if you're only interested in the basic racing game, £60 might be a bit much. But if the other modules it comes with tickle your fancy, it's definitely worth the money. Yeah. And if you think you'll get good use out of them.
One of the key things a lot of people are asking about, those of you that own Flamme Rouge, it is very, very similar. Incredibly similar. So my recommendation on those would be play it first, because if you've already got Flamme Rouge, you may not want this one as well. But I personally, if I had Flamme Rouge, that would be the one that would end up on the sale pile. Mainly because I think the theme is more to my taste in this one. I will, as a closing thing there, James, I will say I'm really happy they've gone for the sort of more, it's like 1960s, 70s style F1 as opposed to the modern.
I would say as...
It might be a bit later than that, actually. 80s?
No. This definitely... I would say earlier. I would actually say this is late 50s, early 60s Formula One.
Okay. I mean, I'm sort of looking at it going, yeah, James Hunt, Niki Lauda.
Yeah, I think it's
that sort of
I think
era.
it's a little before them. Looking at the style of the car, I would say early 60s.
Well, there you go. But I think that's a really cool choice because again, they could have gone with the more modern ones, but I don't think it would have had the same charm.
No.
So these are, like I said, born and bred racers that have now been immortalized in board game form.
Yes.
So yeah. Well, there you go, James. We've managed to get through an episode with the new format. It was a little bit rough.
Yeah.
I guess. But I think it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. I think it's going to take us a couple of episodes to get used to it and not have to keep looking at the notepad.
Yeah. We weren't totally not doing that. Hopefully you guys out there enjoyed the new format. Hopefully we will get a little bit better on that as well. But Heat, pedal to the metal, mate. It's getting my seal of approval.
Yep.
Definitely. Thank you guys for joining us once again for another game highlight episode and bearing with us while we go through our new routine of talking about these games. And I do apologize if I was really, really up on this game, but I can't stress how much I like this game, James.
Yeah. just such a good game.
It really is. Anyway, on that note, till next week, I've been Jason.
And I've been James.
And you've been listening to the Meeple Minded podcast. Join us next week for more tabletop gaming goodness. Ta-ta. Goodbye.